national platform. You cannot say that DCP fears Uhuru Kenyatta. With what? Uhuru Kenyatta is a member of Jubilee Party. Jubilee Party. Let me finish. Jubilee Party has a candidate in Olkarau. Jubilee Party has a candidate in Olkarau. They have a candidate in Olkarau, and we are talking about DCP here. We are not even bothered with that candidacy. And as you can see, they are also not bothered. Why are they not there campaigning for him? You know, Joshua, listen. Joshua, you cannot, let me tell you, Joshua, you cannot purport to study what is happening in Mount Kenya if you do not go to the people themselves and listen to them. Let me tell you, the people understand one thing clearly. Whether you bring in Uhuru Kenyatta or not, because I know why you are bringing in Uhuru Kenyatta. And that is the tactic of this government. This government cannot understand and cannot just take a moment and understand why Uhuru Kenyatta is not supporting them.
Could you answer if Uhuru comes and endorses DCP candidate, what happens? Would you agree to that?
Why not? Why not? That is his choice. He can make that decision himself.
And when 2027 comes, whoever manages to put together those regions and cousins and Nairots that you do not want to hear will be able to take this particular victory home. That is the truth you do not want to hear. Unfortunately, unless you move to Zootopia, this is Kenya, and that is how Kenya behaves, and that's how Kenya operates. You can see what is happening. When you lose, Mount Kenya, that is a basket of votes that you've lost. We've been referring to Mount Kenya based on the number of votes that you bring into the basket. That is the reason why we've been referring to it. When you tell us about the electoral college vote, one vote is enough. That is exactly the same script we are talking about here. The number of votes that you put into a basket that comes in as a block, not divided. That is what you need to understand. I mean, this issue of the former deputy president, Rigathi Gachagua, I said before here that the man needs justice. Just like any one of us here would go to court and get accused wrongly. Justice denied is something that infringes somebody's rights. Whether you like him or not, he was unjustly crucified. So if we can be able to be justly, given his right and his justice served, that would be good for humanity, not looking at it from a political direction that could lead us. It doesn't matter the amount of hate and dislike that you accumulate. Winning an election in Kenya, a presidential elections in Kenya, requires you to mobilize regionally. I keep on reminding people that it is our diversity that makes us Kenya. You cannot compare us with other people. We are Kenya because we are 45, 46, beautifully crafted by whoever the maker of this country was, different ethnicities. When you go to a small Kenya called Kisumu, Nyanza, you'll find our brothers here who speak Thoruo. They have their culture, they have their beauty, they have their everything. When you go to Mount Kenya, when you go to Eastern, you'll find their combination. People who stays there and do things in their own way. That is one thing you will never remove from Kenyans. That is one thing, that's one beauty you will never wish away from this country. The faster you understand, I personally, I have the opportunity to have visited, I would proudly say, every corner of this republic. And whenever you interact with our people from one region to another, you would understand that their view, their perception in regards to the national, interest thereof differs from one region to another. And that is what I'm telling you, you cannot ignore when you want to purport to be going for a presidential vote. At the moment, what you're trying to call is what all of us wish. But what is happening in 2027 August is not what you're trying to call. It is basically the reality on the ground and what is happening. There's a research that was done. The people who vote are not the intellectuals, are not the people you see here listening and arguing from one law to a professor to another. When you go down to the voter on the ground, when you start listening to what it is that holds, what is the emotive of them, you start realizing how far we are from the reality that you're trying to paint. I mean, and it cuts across the entire country. The understanding of our people in regards to what it is that you are saying is far. But when you start telling them about, oh, kuna mtu yetu amekuja ametuongelesha hapa amesema hivi na hivi, because basically we are still in those particular settings as a country. Our country is set to think and behave that way. It's a culture, whether it was good or bad, that is entrenched in us. So it calls for a long time change of culture that would eventually get us to where you are telling me now. This government will go home, not because of the high level of intellectual thinking that we want to put into. It is because of the reality of the vote that counts that ends up in the ballot.
I would want to just kindly comment on these matters of the political, especially on the impeachment. On the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua, especially because that is where we have concluded from. And I will just respond this, not as a lawyer because I'm not, but I'll just respond this from the two statements that have been said, one by the Fred Okango and the other one from the speaker who have just finished speaking. Martin, sorry. So, if you look at this, first and foremost, Fred Okango have used the word celebrate. We already know that this was a politically instigated, impeachment. And if I can just summarize it by saying that the political powers that actually oiled this particular impeachment are still in force. So whatever is happening in court, from where I sit, I do not think that I need to spend all my time debating on whether the judgment was done correctly, whether it was altered, and what justified the judges, the three bench judges. No, I cannot go that direction. It is a political process that is still being manned politically. And we've been told that by Fred Okango, and that is why he is celebrating that the judgment or what I would call the impeachment by the Senate was withheld. However, Fred Okango have correctly put it that there is still some two other steps ahead, in terms of getting justice for the former deputy president. And I believe that is the direction in which he has instructed his lawyers, including one Wajiro, to proceed. So I was not confident, I was not happy with the judgment of the court. I leave it to the lawyers to take it to the next level. One thing, our budget, is basically telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. The question on whether this budget is serving, the Kenyans, no. That sometimes you wonder whether you need to go to work when you realize that the government is taking more than you are taking home. So this is the reality of the Kenya we are. We are overtaxed. There are so many taxes that are being introduced after every other budget that is coming. But you see, we have a country that every year, every out, continues on putting more and more burdens and looking for tax brackets to be able to raise more money. But they do not bother on bringing in efficiency and on the money that we have already collected. So we continue losing a lot of money, so such that the money we collect is never enough, and it keeps on pushing the government to collect more. So this particular budget and the finance bill thereof, it is still going to be a bigger burden than it was last year. If you look at something like the VAT, for example, we've been having as business community, we've been trying to, to petition the government, including attending the public participations, to be able to determine when does the VAT, especially when you invoice the government, falls due. Because many business people have been suffering out of this particular law that we've been having. Because the VAT falls due upon invoicing, but not upon receiving your payment. And this has been killing many businesses who have been working with the government. That particular thing have not been added into the proposed finance bill, despite us, submitting memoranda many times that if you work with the government, if you invoice them, the tax falls due upon them remitting that particular payment. That has been a problem. And it has made a lot of businesses suffer and collapse. So this particular budget will continue burdening our country further and further.